morning everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing fine. In today's video, I'll tell you how to explain the concept of time to kids. You can introduce this concept when kid is around 5 years of age. First, you have to teach them how to identify hours on a clock. When they are a little bit older, then you can talk about minutes, and much later you can talk about seconds. Let's see how to explain this concept to kids. You can either take a clock like this, or you can easily make a clock like this one on a cardboard, or if you don't want to do that, you can draw a clock on a piece of paper to explain the concept. So you can tell kids, look at this clock. In this clock, at the edge of the clock, there are numbers from 1 to 12. And there are two pointers which are spinning around. These are called hands. There are two hands on a clock. The short one is called hour hand and the long one is called minute hand. If the long hand is at 12 and the short hand is at 1, then it is 1 o'clock. Let's take one more example. The long hand will remain at 12 and the short hand is at 4. Now can you tell me what the time is? Time is 4 o'clock. Let's take one more example. So the long hand, which is the minute hand, will always remain at 12. And now the short hand is at 7. Now the time is 7 o'clock. So like this you can explain how to identify hours on a clock. And later you can explain about minutes. You should also tell kids that if the hour hand is between 7 and 8, the hour is always 7. It doesn't change. But for an example, if it points towards 8, then the hour will change and it will become 8 o'clock. Let's take one more example. If the hour hand is between 8 and 9, what is the hour? It will always be 8. And if it points towards 9, then the hour will change to 9. So like this you can explain kids how to identify hours on a clock. Now let us see how to write time. For that you need to first look at where is the hour hand pointing. The hour hand is pointing at 6. So first write 6, then you need to put 2 dots, and then where is the minute hand pointing? It's at 12. 12 is represented by 2 zeros. So this is 6 o'clock. You can write in this way, or also you can write like this, 6 o'clock. Let's take one more example. Now, where is the hour hand is pointing? The hour hand is pointing at 7. So you have to write that first, hour hand first, then 2 dots, and the minute hand is pointing at 12 and it is represented by 2 zeros. So this is 7 o'clock. And you can also write like this way, 7 o'clock. So this is how you have to write the time. Now let's take a look at some of the activity sheets to practice the concept of time. So the first activity sheet is like this. What I did here is I draw some clocks, and now kid has to look at the clock and tell the time. He has to write the time in this box. So the first one, it is the short hand is at 3 and the minute hand is at 12. So it is 3 o'clock. How you have to write? 3, then 2 dot and 2 zeros to say it is 3 o'clock. The next one, the short hand is at 7. So it is 7 o'clock. The next activity sheet is just the opposite of this one. Here the time is given. Now the kid has to mark the time on the clock. So this is 8 o'clock. So the short hand will be at 8 and the long hand will be at 12. The second one, the time is 10. So the short hand will be at 10 and the long hand will be at 12. To say it is 10 o'clock. Let's move on to this activity sheet. Here 3 clocks are given. In the middle one, the time is mentioned. Now kid has to say the time on the left one, which should be 1 hour earlier, and on the right one it should be 1 hour later. For example, the middle clock, the time says it is 2 o'clock. So what is 1 hour earlier? It is 1 o'clock. So he has to mark the time here on this one. So the small hand will be at 1 and the big hand will be at 12 to say 1 o'clock. What will be 1 hour later? It will On this side, he has to mark 1 hour later, which will be 3 o'clock. So the short hand will be at 3 and the big hand will be at 12. The same way here, the middle clock, it is set 4 o'clock. So 1 hour earlier it will be 3 o'clock. So he has to mark the time on this clock, and 1 hour later it will be 5 o'clock. So he has to mark 5 here. Okay, that is how this activity sheet works. For the next activity sheet, what kid has to do is he has to read this paragraph and has to mark the time on the clocks given below. So it says, Anne woke up at 7. She got ready for school and got onto the bus. At 9, the school bell rang. At 1, she had lunch and played with her friends. She finished school at 3. Anne did her homework at 5 and ate dinner at 6. Finally, she went to bed. Then here the clocks are given and there's a question, wake up. So the kid has to look at the paragraph and see what time she woke up. So here it says Anne woke up at 7. So he has to mark 7 on the clock. School bell rang. So he has to find what time the school bell rang at 9. So he has to mark 9 here. Had lunch. So at 1 she had lunch. What time she finished school? She finished school at 3. Finished school at 3. So here he has to mark 3 o'clock. Did homework and did her homework at 5. He has to find 5. I ate dinner at 6. So he has to mark 6 o'clock here. If you want to improve the reading skills of your kids, then you should definitely include these types of activities in the daily practice. The next activity sheet is also for reading and also to know about time. Here the kid has to read the sentence, I make my bed at. I have given the time here, so he has to look at the time and has to write the time. I make my bed. Here the small hand is at 6 and the big hand is at 12, so it is 6 o'clock. So you have to write 6, after that 2 dots and 0, 0. I eat breakfast at. You have to look at the time here. So the small hand is at 7 and the big hand is at 12, so it is 7 o'clock. So kid has to read the sentence and write the time. I go to school at. The small hand is at 8, the big hand is at 12, so it is 8 o'clock. I eat lunch at. Both the big hand and the small hand is at 12, so the time is 12. So these type of activities again will help the kids to read and to write. If your kids are struggling with reading, then try to include these type of activities in their daily practice. It will improve their reading skills as well as their vocabulary. So that's all for today's video. If you find my video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and if you have not subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing it. See you all again with another video. Thanks for watching.